Welcome back to Living Stoic Way. Today, we're diving into 15 psychological principles that make people fear losing you. Here's the truth. People don't lose sleep over what they've gained. They stay up at night replaying what slipped through their fingers. That's not just a feeling, it's how the human brain is wired. And if you've ever looked back at a relationship, a friendship, an opportunity that was once close and then faded away, you know exactly what I mean. Our greatest fear isn't not having more. It's, I had it, and then I lost it. So tonight, I don't want to lecture you. I don't want to give you tricks or gimmicks. I want to sit here with you like two friends talking at a late-night cafe about how the Stoics looked at this fear of loss and how they turned it into strength. Strength to live, strength to love, strength to lead. I've worked with hundreds of students, from entrepreneurs in New York to people in Austin patching up their hearts after a breakup. And what I've seen over and over again is this: we spend so much energy trying to be loved, but what actually gives us weight, what actually gives us power, is becoming someone who is not easily lost. Yes, that sounds sharp, maybe even cold, but the Stoics weren't teaching us to be numb. They were teaching us courage, the courage to not beg for attention, the courage to protect your dignity, the courage to set boundaries so that when you give cleanly, without resentment. Let me ask you, are you letting your life orbit around someone's phone notifications? Do you rush to answer every text just so they don't think badly of you? Have you put off your own goals, your workout, your reading, that project you care about, just to fit into someone else's schedule? If you said yes, here's the truth: you're making yourself abundant, and the human brain doesn't respect what feels abundant. The Stoics would tell you, live a life so full that no one can ever be the permanent center of it. When your life has a spine, your goal, your discipline, your private joys, your presence has value, and suddenly, people know they can't take you for granted. I remember one student. His name was Alex. He was stuck in a classic push and pull relationship. When he went quiet, she chased. When he chased, she went cold. He asked me, what do I do to make her need me more? I didn't give him a list of texting tricks. I said, Alex, change the question. Don't focus on making her need you. Focus on becoming someone you don't want to lose yourself. He sighed, half laughed, but then he started simple things: sleeping on time, lifting weights regularly, finishing his photo project, grabbing Thursday dinners with old friends, and learning not to reply instantly when he was doing deep work. 2 months later, he sat across from me and said, I don't know what the future holds for us, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'll be fine with or without her. And that, my friend, is exactly when someone starts fearing losing you, when you show them you'll never lose yourself. The Stoics have a gentle reminder: stay calm in chaos. In love or in work, there will always be people who try to pull you into their storms, ghosting, reappearing, stirring jealousy, then acting like nothing happened. But you don't have to dance to their rhythm. Secure indifference, it isn't coldness, it isn't punishment. It's refusing to let someone else set the tempo of your mind. You breathe, you stand tall, you keep moving through your day. And that steadiness, that unshakable calm, that's what makes people fear losing you more than any sweet words could. And here's another truth: mystery is not confusion. A lot of people mix the two up. They think being inconsistent or unclear makes them attractive. It doesn't. It just makes them exhausting. Mystery is different. Mystery means you live clear in your values, your standards, your goals, but you don't put your entire inner world on display. You keep some private corners, maybe a journal, a side project, a memory you don't explain. When you don't overshare, what you do share becomes precious. And from that, A gentle fear is born, the fear of losing someone with an inner world so rich, so rare, that being let in feels like a privilege. So, if you're watching this while standing at some invisible line between holding tighter and letting go so you can live, I want you to try one practice tomorrow. Just 15 minutes of active silence. No notifications, no social media, no quick replies. Sit upright. Drop your shoulders. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out deeply. Then ask yourself, if nobody needed me right now, what would I do to honor myself? Maybe it's reading 10 pages. Maybe it's a walk outside. Maybe it's writing one honest sentence about who you want to be. When you start respecting your own time, people will learn to respect it too. Now, I won't promise that living this way will make you win someone. That's not what the Stoics were about. What I can promise is this: you'll sleep deeper. You'll speak less, but with more weight. You'll love slower, but stronger. And you'll work with a quiet kind of joy. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop fearing being left behind, others start fearing being left by you. Not because you're playing games, but because you've returned to the natural seat of your dignity. One day, you may face a choice: stay in the same endless argument, or step out in peace. When that day comes, remember, walking away early isn't running, it's courage. The courage of someone who understands the value of time and the gift of presence. And if you're still asking yourself, can I really become someone others fear losing? My answer is, don't start by trying to scare anyone. Start by becoming a version of yourself you would never want to lose. When you respect your time, your words, your body, and your dreams, something shifts. You no longer chase value. You are value. Welcome to that journey. In the next part, we'll walk through the specific principles, the small but powerful practices that turn calm into gravity and turn fear of loss into the art of holding yourself steady. But for now, just remember this: you're not here to beg to be kept. You're here to become someone who cannot be easily lost. And when you do that, every relationship around you will change quietly, but forever. Stoic Foundation, Boundaries. Have you ever noticed this? In life, the easier something is to get, the less people value it. Think about a coffee shop that's always empty. Do you feel any excitement walking in? Probably not. But when a cafe is crowded, when there's a wait list, suddenly you think, this place must be special. Humans are wired that way. What feels rare, we value. What feels endless, we take for granted. And the same is true with you, your time, your energy, your heart. The Stoics used to remind us, if you don't protect yourself, other people will define you for you. That may sound harsh, but it's the truth. Boundaries aren't walls. They're a map. They show the world who you are, what you value, and what you allow into your life. If you don't draw your own boundaries, others will draw them for you, consciously or not. And when that happens, you lose yourself. I remember, in my early years teaching philosophy, a student came to me after class. He said, "Professor, my friends are always asking me for favors. I never say no because I don't want to upset them. But I'm exhausted, and the more I give, the more they act like it's nothing." I smiled and asked, "Have you ever seen a 5-star hotel let random people swim in their pool and eat for free?" He laughed. "Of course not." "Exactly," I said. "Their value comes from clear boundaries. You're no different. When you let people use your time and energy without limits, you turn yourself into a 24/7 diner anyone can walk in, anytime. And nobody respects that. The Stoics understood a life without boundaries is a life without direction. You get pulled into everyone else's needs instead of living by your own values. Think back to the last time you said, "No," to something that didn't feel right. At first, it probably felt awkward. You worried they'd be upset, maybe even walk away. But afterwards, didn't you feel lighter, like you just defended sacred ground inside yourself? That's the power of boundaries. They don't destroy real friendships. They reveal who truly respects you. Sometimes people ask me, if I set boundaries, won't I come across as selfish? I always answer with this: you've been on an airplane. Right before takeoff, the crew tells you, in an emergency, put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. It sounds selfish, but it's survival. You can't save anyone if you can't breathe. Boundaries work the same way. When you protect your rest, when you protect your focus, when you protect your emotions from toxic voices, you're giving your soul oxygen. And once you're full, then you can give love, care, and help that lasts. The same goes for love. A partner who always says yes, who sacrifices without limits, might look noble at first. But over time, that always available turns ordinary, even unattractive. Love isn't about total control. It's about walking together with clear lines, mutual respect, and freedom. One of the Stoic masters, Epictetus, said it best: don't expect others to respect you if you don't respect yourself. I've seen it over and over in real life. In work, the people who say no to projects that don't fit are usually the ones most respected because they prove their time matters. In relationships, the ones with principles and healthy distance are the ones others admire, even crave. So the question isn't, what will people think if I set boundaries? The real question is, who will I become if I don't? Will you be someone always pulled in every direction, or someone steady, choosing what's truly worthy of you? Boundaries, in the end, are a silent message you send to the world. I have value, and I will not trade it for cheap approval. Think of it like a fence around your garden. A fence doesn't mean no one can enter. It means anyone who does has to walk through the gate with respect, not storm in and trample everything. If you're watching this and realizing you've been too easy, I'm not telling you to flip your life overnight or to build a cold wall. Just start small. Maybe one evening, no email. One morning, just exercise and meditation. No phone, no dates, no meetings. Or maybe finally saying no to a get-together you never wanted in the first place. Do that one small thing, and you'll notice a big shift. You're not just setting boundaries with others, you're training discipline in yourself. And once that discipline grows, people will learn to respect you differently. They'll realize time with you isn't automatic. They'll feel that being inside your circle is a privilege, not a guarantee. And that's when they begin to fear losing you, not because you're playing games, but because you're living true to the Stoic values of freedom, dignity, and self-mastery. Scarcity bias. Have you ever felt this? A concert announces it's sold out, and suddenly it feels 10 times more attractive. Or a limited edition sneaker drops, and there are only a few pairs left. Your heart starts racing, like you have to grab them right now. That's not random. That's how the human brain reacts to scarcity. In behavioral economics, it's called scarcity bias. We assign more value to what feels rare and dismiss what feels too easy to get. That's why diamonds, just a type of rock, became the symbol of eternal love, not because the stone itself is magical, but because it's rare. And in relationships, this principle works quietly, but powerfully. When you're always available, always replying instantly, always canceling your own plans to fit into someone else's, you turn yourself into water from a tap. Useful, maybe needed, but taken for granted. People get used to your presence, like sunlight every morning. And when something feels too familiar, we forget how precious it is. The Stoics understood this. They didn't promote coldness or games. They simply reminded us live a life so full that people realize you don't revolve around them. When you have work, goals, discipline, passions, and your own joys, you naturally become rare. Not because you're pretending to be unavailable, but because you're genuinely busy living a full life. And in that moment, your presence becomes a privilege, something people quietly fear losing. I remember a conversation with a young entrepreneur in Los Angeles. He complained that his girlfriend often took him for granted. I asked, "How many hours a week do you spend just waiting for her text?" He laughed awkwardly. "Maybe 20, 30 hours. I told him, "Imagine if you poured those 30 hours into building a new skill, growing your project, connecting with quality friends. Not only would your life be fuller, you would become more attractive, and your time, your presence, would suddenly feel more valuable." A few months later, he messaged me, "Coach, I didn't change anything else. I just started living more fully." And she began appreciating me in a way she never had before. That's the point Stoicism keeps bringing back. You don't need to shout to prove your value. Let your life itself prove it. Scarcity bias isn't a trick. It's a simple truth. When you hold yourself back, when you live fully, you become hard to replace. And once you're hard to replace, people start to fear losing you. Secure indifference. Here's a funny paradox. Manipulators, players, people who thrive on mind games, they're not actually strong. The only thing they survive on is your reaction. They disappear so you panic and chase. They spark jealousy so you lose control. They drop a little insult just to see you explode. And every time you react, whether with sadness, anger, or jealousy, you're sending them one message: you still matter to me. The Stoics had an art for this. They called it secure indifference. Now, don't get it wrong, this isn't about being cold or numb. It's about staying calm, keeping your center, refusing to let someone else's chaos decide your state of mind. You can still love, you can still care, but you don't let their storm knock you off balance. I once worked with a woman after a very turbulent marriage. She told me he knew exactly which button to press to make me lose it. And every time I blew up, he would just smile like he'd won. I asked her, "The last time he tried, did you ever try silence?" She shook her head. "Never. I always explained, argued, defended." I suggested she try something new, stay calm. Just observe, no reaction. Weeks later, she wrote me, "I've never seen him so confused. When I didn't react, his tricks suddenly had no power." That's the strength of secure indifference. When you refuse to play their game, you automatically take back control. Think about a breakup. The one who begs, cries, sends long messages, they're forgotten quickly. The one who stays calm, silent, walks away with dignity, they haunt the memory. Because silence plants a question that echoes. Why didn't they react? Was I never that important? And that question lingers far longer than tears or shouting ever could. For the Stoics, indifference isn't a weapon to punish others. It's a way of living rooted in self-mastery. It says, "I control myself, not you." And when you practice this, you don't just make others fear losing you. More importantly, you free yourself from ever being controlled by them again. So how do you build secure indifference? Here's one simple practice. Learn to separate events from emotions. When someone says something that stings, ask yourself, was that just words? Or was it a real threat? 9 times out of 10, it's just words. And words can't touch your essence unless you allow them to. Remember, this calm isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to feel fully without being swept away. The Stoics called it ataraxia, a mind steady like a still lake, no matter how hard the winds blow around it. And that stillness, that calm, is exactly what makes people fear losing you, because deep down, they know they can't move you. Emotional chess, intermittent reinforcement. Have you ever noticed people don't get addicted to what's predictable? They get hooked on what's unpredictable. Think about it. Slot machines in a casino, those random social media notifications, or that one person who texts you all day and then disappears for a week. All of it runs on the same psychological principle, intermittent reinforcement. Over 50 years ago, psychologist B.F. Skinner ran a famous experiment with lab rats. When rats pressed a lever and always got food, they'd stop pressing after a while. But when the reward came randomly, sometimes yes, sometimes no, they became obsessed. They kept pressing, even to the point of exhaustion. Sound familiar? That's exactly how the human brain reacts when caught in uncertainty. In relationships, this principle shows up more than you think. Maybe you've chased someone's attention before, warm one day, cold the next. Sometimes they praise you. Sometimes they act like you don't exist. And the irony is this unpredictability makes you think of them more because your brain gets stuck on the question, what will I get next time? Now let me be clear, the Stoics never encouraged you to play emotional starvation games. This isn't about manipulation, but they did understand one truth: if you're too predictable, you become ordinary. When you reply instantly every time, when you always compliment, when you agree with everything, your presence fades into background noise, and nobody notices background noise. So, what's the lesson? Learn to give your attention selectively, with meaning. Don't text just to fill silence. Let your messages carry weight. Don't compliment out of habit. Wait until effort is real, then recognize it at the right moment. Give people just enough space to wonder, when will I get that again? I once coached a student in San Francisco. He was used to texting his girlfriend almost 24/7. The result, she treated his presence as default. No spark, no excitement. I told him, give her the chance to miss you. Don't turn yourself into a radio that never stops playing. So he tried it, not disappearing, but slowing down. He focused on his projects, texted only when he actually had something to share. A few weeks later, she started reaching out more because his absence finally had weight. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about balance between presence and absence, between giving and stepping back. When your attention is given with intention, people stop seeing it as a right and start treating it as a gift. And gifts that aren't endless become things people fear losing. The Stoics put it this way: live with rhythm, not in a rush, not drained out. Like music, if one note plays forever, the song is boring. But with rises and pauses, with moments of silence and surprise, that's when the listener's mind stays hooked. Life and relationships are exactly the same. Emotional contrast. Have you noticed this? Sunlight only feels truly warm when it comes after a long stretch of rain, and a compliment only lands deep when it arrives in silence, not buried under a flood of words. Humans don't measure feelings in absolutes. We feel them through contrast. Psychologists call it emotional contrast, and in Stoic philosophy, it's seen as natural law. Everything reveals its value only when placed beside its opposite. Joy shines brighter when you've known loss. Love feels deeper when you've tasted distance. Warmth, if it's constant, eventually fades into background temperature, familiar, unnoticed. In relationships, this is especially true. If you're always gentle, always attentive, always available, that kindness soon feels like default. But when you allow small pauses, when you step back for a breath after closeness, that space makes the warmth stand out. Like music notes can't move you without pauses in between. I remember speaking with a young couple. The girlfriend complained, "He's too good to me. He texts all the time, calls nonstop, keeps giving gifts, but somehow I don't feel as happy as I used to." The boyfriend looked crushed. "She doesn't appreciate what I do." I explained, "It's not that she isn't grateful. You've just forgotten the power of contrast. You're giving so much, so constantly, that even treasures start to feel ordinary. Try slowing down. Let your presence have pauses. That way, when you show warmth, it will shine again." The Stoics understood you don't need extremes, not constant coldness, not endless warmth. The magic is in rhythm, knowing when to lean in and when to step back. Think of a flame. If it burns nonstop, it destroys. But if it rises and softens, it warms without consuming. Love works the same way. And it's not just about romance. In leadership, a manager who gives praise selectively, mixed with silence for reflection, has far more impact than one who flatters daily. In friendship, short absences can make reunions memorable. And within yourself, gratitude grows only when you allow hard days to sit beside your good days. So, if you want others to value your presence, don't try to be sunlight 24/7. Let the darkness step in, not to erase you, but to highlight you, because a whisper in silence carries more power than a shout in the noise. The Stoics would remind us, use gentle shifts to awaken value. Don't give so much that it feels automatic. Don't withdraw so much you vanish. Be the one who sets the rhythm like an artist holding the music of your own life. And when you do that, your warmth becomes something people are truly afraid to lose. The Zeigarnik effect. Have you ever noticed? It's the unfinished stories we remember the longest. A movie that ends right at the climax. People talk about it for years. A text that stops mid-sentence. "I need to tell you something," and then nothing. That single pause can haunt the receiver for weeks. Our minds hate the incomplete. They replay it, loop it, over and over, like a song that suddenly cuts off mid-note. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. In short, we obsess more over what's unfinished than what's done. The Stoics, keen observers of human nature, understood this well. They never rushed to reveal everything. They didn't overshare. They knew the art of leaving space, stopping words at just the right moment, letting silence follow after a tender gesture. And it's those empty spaces that make you unforgettable far more than any loud performance. I once saw this in a friendship. A former student of mine, after an emotional reunion, ended our conversation with a mysterious smile and said, "You'll understand later." Then he changed the subject. Years have passed, and I still wonder, what did he mean? That unfinished line turned an ordinary meeting into a memory I can't shake. In love, the effect is even stronger. A date that ends while both of you are still laughing leaves you eager for the next. A story cut off midway keeps the other person curious about the rest. Even a message left on read without an immediate reply, sometimes that silence leaves a deeper echo than a long paragraph ever could. The Stoics remind us not everything needs to be wrapped up right away. Sometimes, incompleteness itself is the seed of connection. When you hold something back, not as a trick, but as respect for silence, you give the other person a gift, the gift of curiosity, of wanting to know more. And remember, this isn't manipulation. It's simply the wisdom of not overfilling. Because when you give too much, too fast, people become numb, but leave a little unfinished, and they lean in. So if you want to be unforgettable, don't give everything in one go. Leave a door slightly closed. Leave a story unfinished. Leave a glance unexplained. The human brain will do the rest, replaying, searching, holding on to you longer than they ever expected. The Stoics would say, don't rush to make everything complete. It's the gaps, the pauses, the things left undone that haunt the human mind. Ego triggering. Here's something fascinating about human nature. We can ignore dozens of compliments from strangers, but lose sleep over just one important person not giving us recognition. That's the power of the ego. In psychology, they call it reactance, that inner pushback when we feel like we're losing control. And when you don't hand out approval too easily, people begin to crave it more. If your recognition matters, losing you feels like losing the only mirror they want to see themselves in. The Stoics understood this well, not to manipulate people, but to live more truthfully. Because think about it, if every word out of your mouth is praise, if you're always available with approval, your words lose weight. But if you're selective, if you recognize effort when it's real, if you compliment only when it's genuine suddenly, your words become gold. I had a student once, desperate for his father's approval. He told me, my dad rarely praised me, but the one time he said, I'm proud of you, I never forgot it. It wasn't that his father was cold, it was that the recognition was rare, and that's what gave it weight. And this is the same in love. If someone is constantly praised, constantly spoiled, it starts to feel routine. But when you hold back once in a while, when you stay quiet instead of praising for nothing, they start to wonder, did I do enough? Should I try harder? And that question makes them fear losing your recognition. The Stoics taught, don't let your words become cheap. Let every compliment you give feel like a gold coin, rare, meaningful, unforgettable. Because if every day was sunny, who would still cherish the sun? It's the rainy days, the gray days, that make us value sunlight when it returns. Recognition, appreciation, it works the same way. So if you want your presence to be something people fear losing, don't give it all away too quickly. Let their ego crave your approval. And when you finally give it, when you speak at the right moment, your words don't just make them happy. They remind them of something deeper. Losing you means losing the one person who can make them feel enough. Mystery over confusion. Have you ever met someone who just left you confused? One moment they're warm, the next they're cold. They say one thing, but do another. At first, it might feel intriguing, but sooner or later, that mess wears you down. That's not mystery, that's confusion. And confusion, people don't want to keep it around for long. The Stoics understood this. They never played the mixed signals game just to keep someone hooked. Instead, they lived clear in their values, firm in their principles, but they kept just enough mystery in their emotions. Meaning, I respect my time. I value my dignity. I live by standards. But what you don't fully know is how I feel about you, where I place you in my inner world. And that space, that not knowing, that's what keeps people leaning in. I once had a student who asked me, Professor, how can I be more attractive to others? I told him, live as straight as a clear road, but let your heart keep a few turns. He laughed. Didn't quite get it then. Years later, when we met again, he said I finally understood. Mystery isn't about playing hide and seek. It's about keeping a part of yourself private. That's what stopped people from taking me for granted. In love, mystery isn't about driving someone crazy with contradictions. It's about giving a glimpse, a little warmth, a little softness, and then holding back. Like reading a novel, the best chapters never reveal everything at once. They leave questions, details unfinished. And it's those unanswered parts that make you keep reading and remembering. In work, mystery has power too. A leader doesn't need to explain every emotion. When they're clear about principles, but calm in expression, people respect them and wonder, what's he thinking? What comes next? The curiosity itself creates influence. The Stoics taught mystery isn't about hiding out of spite. It's about selective stillness. You're not withholding to frustrate, you're simply not pouring out everything at once. And that choice forces others to invest more, think more, lean closer to understand you. And the truth is, the more someone invests, the more they fear losing. So if you want to leave a lasting impression, don't create chaos with mixed signals. Live clear in your values, but keep a little mystery in your heart. Because it's the words left unsaid that spark desire. It's the story left unfinished that lingers. And it's that very space, those unanswered questions, where the fear of losing you quietly begins to grow. Controlled vulnerability. Most people think strength means being untouchable, never showing weakness, never letting anything crack the armor. But the Stoics would say otherwise. True strength isn't coldness. It's knowing what to share and what to hold back. Think about it. Someone who hides everything, whose heart is steel. Sure, you might admire their toughness, but at the same time, they feel distant, almost inhuman, and eventually, you stop wanting to get close. On the other side, someone who shares everything, every detail, every wound, every secret. At first, it feels honest, refreshing even, but soon, you realize when nothing is held back, the mystery disappears, and with it, the allure. Controlled vulnerability lives right in the middle. You reveal just enough of your truth, maybe a childhood story, a fear you once faced, a memory that still tugs at your heart, but you don't give it all away. You leave a little blur, a half-closed door. And it's that unfinished space that keeps people thinking about you, wondering about you, long after the moment passes. I once watched a close friend, a successful entrepreneur, speak at a conference. On stage, he said, "I once went bankrupt. I had to sleep in my car for months, but that season gave me the resilience I have today." And then he stopped. No extra details, no drama. The whole room went silent. Why? Because the power wasn't just in what he said, it was in what he didn't say. The audience felt the weight of the untold story. And that's where imagination began, where real connection happened. It's the same in love. When you share a little of your fear, like losing someone you love, or failing at something that matters, you let the other person feel special. They see a part of you the world doesn't usually see. But when you stop there, when you don't, pour it all out, something beautiful happens. They're left wondering, what else don't I know? What else is hidden beneath? That question is the seed of attachment, and with it, the fear of losing you begins to grow. The key is balance. Too closed, and you become a cold wall. Too open, and you lose magnetism. But when you reveal just enough, you build intimacy and preserve mystery. And that combination, warmth with mystery, is what lingers. The Stoics might put it simply, give part of the truth and keep the rest burning like a hidden fire. You don't need to show the entire mountain for people to feel its majesty. Sometimes, just a peak breaking through the clouds is enough. The imagination will take care of the rest. So the next time you want to connect with someone, don't think you have to give it all away. Share a little, hold a little. And you'll see it's the space you leave behind that makes people carry you in their minds, long after you're gone. Strategic silence. Sometimes the greatest power doesn't come from what you say, but from what you choose not to say. The Stoics knew this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Let your actions speak louder than your words." Silence, at the right moment can hit harder than any speech. Think back, when was the last time you poured your heart out in a long message and the other person never replied? How did it feel? Empty, uneasy, your mind spinning. Why didn't they answer? What are they thinking? Did I do something wrong? That silence screamed louder than 1,000 words of blame. That's the essence of a strategic silence. It's not ghosting. It's not playing cold games. It's the art of knowing when to pause. After a confession, don't rush to over-explain. Stop. After an argument, don't fight to the bitter end. Step back. After an intimate moment, don't drown it in chatter. Let the feeling breathe. I once worked with a leader in Chicago. He had a powerful habit every time he made a key statement. He would stop and stay silent. The whole room froze. Every eye locked on him. People leaned in, waiting. Just a few seconds of pause, but it made his words 10 times heavier. Later, he told me silence is a weapon. The one who controls silence forces others to fill the gap with their own thoughts. In love, it works the same. One of my students went through a dramatic breakup. His ex sent long messages begging, blaming, pleading, and he stayed silent. He focused on his own life. And what haunted her most wasn't the fight. It was the silence. The unanswered question. Why didn't he react? Why didn't he try to hold on? That silence became a shadow that lingered far longer than words ever could. The Stoics would say silence isn't absence. It's another kind of presence. It shows you're strong enough not to prove yourself, calm enough not to argue back. And that's what makes people fear losing you, because they can't read you, can't predict you, can't control you with provocation. So learn to use silence like a rest in music, not to create coldness, but to highlight the notes that matter. Because here's the truth, one pause, at the right moment, can move a heart more than 1,000 noisy words. And when you master this art, you'll realize sometimes what makes people fear losing you isn't what you say. It's what you choose not to say. Reverse frame control. Have you noticed this? In every conversation, there's always an invisible frame, an unspoken set of rules that decides who's leading and who's following. In psychology, we call it frame control. And in life, the person who owns the frame usually owns the power. Let me give you a simple example. On a date, someone asks, "So, what are we? Where is this going?" If you rush to answer, scrambling to reassure them you've stepped into their frame, they set the terms. You're the one auditioning. But imagine instead, you smile calmly and say, "I know exactly where I'm going. You're welcome to come along or not. Either way, I'm still moving forward." That's flipping the frame. You're not auditioning for a role in their life. They're auditioning for a role in yours. The Stoics reminded us never let others define your worth. Seneca once wrote, "He who lives by the approval of the crowd will die by their contempt." When you let others hold the frame, you live in constant anxiety. Do they accept me? Am I enough? But when you hold the frame, when you're clear about your values, your direction, your standards, you step out of the role of beggar and into the role of chooser. I had a student once who asked me, "Why do I always feel like I have to prove myself in relationships? I do everything, and they still leave." I told him, the problem isn't that you're not good enough. The problem is you're letting them hold the frame. You've made yourself a contestant in an audition you don't even need. Flip it. Make them show you why they deserve to stay. Months later, he wrote back, "For the first time, I feel free. Not because I changed everything, but because I stopped putting them on the judge's seat. Now I'm the one setting the rules." It's the same in business. The salesperson who begs, who keeps lowering their price, rarely wins. But the one who says, "This is what we stand for. You can join us, or not. We're not in a rush." That's the one who wins because they've set the frame. This value isn't for everyone. Now, let's be clear. Reversing the frame isn't arrogance. It's not about "I'm above you." It's about this simple truth: I don't need permission to exist. I exist. I walk my path. And if you want to join, adjust to my rhythm. The Stoics would say, own your frame. Otherwise, you'll spend your life playing a side character in someone else's. And when you master this, you'll notice something: people start fearing losing you, not because you threaten them, but because you're the one person they can't control with their rules. Loss aversion. If there's one psychological rule that drives most human behavior, it's this: people fear losing more than they enjoy gaining. Behavioral economists have proven it. The pain of losing $100 cuts about twice as deep as the joy of winning $200. And you see this everywhere. A store hangs up a sign, "Only 2 left." Suddenly, everyone's rushing to buy. An app flashes, "Offer ends in 24 hours," and we hurry to make a choice. In relationships, it's the same. The fear of losing someone often feels stronger than the love we actually feel for them. The Stoics understood this truth. They didn't tell us to manipulate others with fear. They reminded us to live in a way where our presence is never taken for granted. When you show that your life is steady, full, even radiant, whether someone stays or not, you awaken a quiet fear in them. What would happen if I lost this person? I once worked with a young man in Dallas. After a breakup, he was in crisis. He begged. He texted hundreds of times. He just wanted her back. But of course, the more he chased, the further she pulled away. After a few sessions, I told him, let her see the truth that you'll live well without her. When you prove that, the fear of loss won't be yours anymore, it'll be hers. Months later, he wrote back to me, "Coach, I've found my rhythm again, and now she's the one reaching out to me." That wasn't magic. That was just human psychology in action. Because in love, in work, even in friendship, when you're too available, people assume you'll always be there. But when you show that you can walk away at any time, suddenly, they hold on tighter. That's loss aversion at work. The Stoics would remind us, don't live trying to make others dependent on you. Live in a way that makes losing you feel like losing something irreplaceable. And when that becomes true, you'll never need to shout to prove your worth. Their own fear will do the work for you. Walking away. First. Here's a truth most people don't want to face. The one who leaves first is the one who leaves the deepest mark. Not because they were better, not because they loved less, but because they understood a basic law of psychology. Whoever walks away first creates the kind of emptiness that haunts more than any goodbye ever could. The Stoics called this the discipline of choice. You don't wait for things to collapse to walk away. You don't wait until your heart is ashes to let go. You choose to leave while you're still clear, still whole. And that choice, the act of leaving first, is what makes you unforgettable. I once met a man in New York who spent years in a controlling relationship. One day, he didn't fight. He didn't argue. He simply packed his things, left a short note. "Thank you for everything. I'm moving on." And then, he walked out, quietly. Months later, his ex-wife still told friends, "I don't understand how he could leave so easily." That gap, that unanswered story, that's what turned him into an unshakable memory. In psychology, this ties to the Zeigarnik effect. Our minds replay what's unfinished. When you walk away first, without giving the final explanation, You leave an unfinished story in the other person's mind, and their brain replays it again and again, like a song with no ending. But walking away first isn't a trick. It's discipline. It means knowing what you deserve and daring to leave what no longer serves you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not cling to what no longer nourishes the soul." The Stoics wouldn't waste time with long speeches or tears to prove their love. They would simply walk away in silence. And that silence becomes the longest lasting sentence in the other person's mind. Remember this. When you walk away first, you reclaim two things, dignity and freedom. Dignity, because you don't wait until you're broken beyond repair. Freedom, because you prove you can live without anyone's permission. And for the other person, the pain isn't just losing you. It's realizing they never truly had control over you in the first place. Walking away first isn't cruelty. It's the highest expression of inner strength. When you leave in calm, you don't plant hatred. You don't need revenge. You let your silence echo for years. And that echo, the fear of loss, will live in their mind long after you've gone. The Stoics would smile and say, sometimes the strongest presence is the absence chosen at the right time. And when you understand this, you'll see walking away first isn't an ending. It's the beginning of a life that's truly free. Self-sufficiency. One of the core lessons of Stoic philosophy is this: true happiness doesn't come from possessing someone. It comes from being whole within yourself. When you can stand strong on your own, you stop fearing loss. And the moment you stop fearing, that's when others start fearing losing you. See, we've been taught quietly, almost unconsciously, that we're only complete when someone stands beside us. Culture, movies, even fairy tales whisper you're only whole when you find your other half. But the Stoics didn't believe that. They believed every person is already complete. Someone else can walk with you, enrich your life, add beauty to it, but no one is a missing piece you must have to be whole. I remember a student once told me, "I'm terrified of being abandoned because I don't know how to live without them." So I asked, "And before you met them, how did you live?" He paused, then laughed quietly. "I was fine. In fact, sometimes even better than now." That moment was his realization. Self-sufficiency isn't about needing no one. It's about knowing you'll still be okay, even when no one's there. The Stoics trained this self-sufficiency through daily discipline. Epictetus once said, "The free person is the one who depends on nothing but their own reason." You can start small, cook yourself a meal, finish a personal project, take a weekend just to do what you love without needing anyone's approval or company. Every moment you live on your own terms, you're declaring, "I am enough." And here's the paradox. When you truly become self-sufficient, you no longer cling. You can love deeply, you can care fully, but your love doesn't carry fear. And because you don't depend, you become rare. Others will see it. This person doesn't need me to survive, but still chooses to be with me. And that kind of bond, that free, intentional choice, is the one people are most afraid of losing. In work, it's the same. The employee who knows their value isn't built on the boss's approval is usually the one most respected. In friendship, the person who can nourish themselves is never treated as lesser. And in love, the self-sufficient partner is always magnetic because they don't become an emotional burden. The Stoics would say, when you no longer fear being alone, that's when the world truly wants to keep you. Why? Because your presence isn't clinging, it's a gift chosen, not forced. And a choice like that, when it comes from someone who is whole within themselves, is always the kind of presence people fear losing most. Timeless value. There's one thing no psychological trick can ever replace: the core value of who you truly are. You can use scarcity, you can use silence, you can use contrast, but if inside you're empty, all of it is just fresh paint on a hollow wall. The Stoics understood this deeply. Lasting influence doesn't come from games. It comes from virtue, from discipline, from living a life built on principles. I often remind my students, don't just live to be remembered for a moment. Live in a way that you become a memory people never forget. And that kind of memory doesn't come from drama. It comes from the way you stand by your values year after year, quietly, consistently. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A good man does not need to announce he is good. Live like a Stoic, simple, calm, guided by reason." When you live this way, you don't just leave impressions. You leave milestones. People may leave you. Circumstances may change, but they won't forget how you lived in truth. I remember after a talk in Boston, a woman in her 70s took my hand and said, "I once loved a young man. He wasn't the richest. He wasn't the most romantic, but he was the most disciplined. He always kept his word. He lived by his principles. And to this day, I still remember him as someone irreplaceable." That's timeless value, not built in moments, but built in consistency. At work, a colleague may forget what you said in a meeting, but they'll remember that you always kept your word, always met your deadlines. In friendship, people might forget a few parties, but they'll remember that you showed up when their world was falling apart. In love, they may forget specific gifts, but they'll remember the consistency of your care, the sincerity you carried to the end. The Stoics would say, let time itself be the proof of your value. Because tricks might win someone's attention for a season, but character and self-mastery earn their respect for a lifetime. And here's the real reason people fear losing you, not because you're mysterious, not because you're silent, but because in a world full of change, you are one of the rare few who live real, live steady, live unshaken by the crowd. Losing you means losing something rare, something they know they won't easily find again. So remember this, all the tactics, scarcity, silence, even walking away, first, those are just tools. But timeless value, that's the foundation. If you live a life not chasing approval but loyal to your dignity, you'll never need to make people fear losing you. They'll know it, instinctively. And they'll hold on to you like a treasure they cannot afford to let slip away. We've just walked through 15 Stoic principles lessons that don't just make others fear losing you, but more importantly, help you live with calm, independence, and wholeness. The Stoics never told us to live in order to be loved more. They reminded us live in such a way that even you yourself would never want to lose you. When you master self-sufficiency, when you hold on to dignity and discipline, you don't need to control anyone. Your very presence becomes enough to make others respect you, protect their place in your life, and yes, fear losing you. And that is true power, the kind of power that lasts beyond time. So if something in this message resonates with you, if you believe Stoic philosophy can make your life stronger, clearer, more grounded, don't just stop at watching. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this is just the beginning. I promise you there are many more lessons, perspectives, and real-life stories I want to share, so that day by day, you move closer to inner freedom and closer to becoming someone the world cannot easily replace. So subscribe, turn on the notifications, and remember this. Don't live just to be kept. Live to become the one. who cannot be lost.